All right, let's just jump right into it. I want you to imagine a world where your daily life is so perfectly, seamlessly automated that your mind is completely free. Free to focus on just one thing, doing your absolute best work. Today, we're going to explore a pretty radical vision for how we could live and work. A future designed specifically to get rid of all the little annoyances and just unleash our full potential. So picture this. You're walking home from the office and this notification pops up on your phone. Now, this isn't a five-star hotel. This is a message from the downtime protocol in your company-provided apartment. This right here, this is the core promise. A life where all the small stuff is just handled so you can finally focus on the big stuff. So how in the world do we get there? Well, the whole thing starts with one foundational idea: creating a world completely without chores. You know that constant low-level buzz in the back of your head, the one that's always thinking about what's for dinner, or that you need to do laundry or take out the trash? Experts call that cognitive load. And the big question here is, what if we could get all of that brain power back and use it for something, well, for something brilliant? And let's be super clear here. This is not just about making life easier. The ultimate goal is to create a strategic system. It's an environment where every single detail is engineered to strip away every possible distraction. The idea is to create this perfect cycle of intense, high-value work, followed by truly restorative, deep rest. This brings us to the actual blueprint for a place like this, which the source material calls a genius incubator. I love that name. The thinking is that you can't just sit around and hope for breakthrough ideas to happen. No, you have to actually design a space that manufactures them. And you do that by engineering two things that sound like opposites: serendipity and deep focus. And here's where it gets really interesting, this tension in the design. On one hand, you have these huge common spaces that are built for collision. Think big open rooms, whiteboards everywhere. They are literally designed to make you bump into people and have random conversations. But then, on the other hand, you have the private spaces, and they are engineered for the exact opposite: total, uninterrupted focus, tiny, quiet, completely soundproofed pods for deep work. It's that balance, that push and pull, that's supposed to be the key. And that term, intellectual collision, it is so central to this whole concept. It's the secret sauce. It's that little bit of magic that happens when, say, a programmer from one team bumps into a graphic designer from another in the kitchen, and all of a sudden they solve a problem that neither one of them could crack on their own. The entire building becomes a machine, built to maximize the chances of these little productive accidents. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds a little bit like science fiction, right? But here's the thing. Versions of this idea are already being used right now by some of the biggest companies on the planet. So let's take a look at how this is actually playing out today. What's so fascinating is how these companies use the exact same tool, housing, for completely different goals. You look at Google and Meta, and for them, it's all about their intern programs. It's about building a collaborative culture from the very first day. Then you have consulting firms. They use it for intense project-based work, basically creating a super tight-knit team in a really short amount of time. And then there's Amazon. For them, it is pure, hardcore operational efficiency, getting rid of every single hurdle so their temporary workforce can be 100% focused on the task at hand. And this timeline, this really puts it all into perspective. This is not some brand new idea. It's a really old one that just keeps getting reinvented. You know, from the old company towns like Hershey, to the sprawling biotech campuses of the 80s, to the hacker hostels of the startup boom. We've been trying to design spaces that spark innovation for over a century. The real difference, the game changer now, is the insane level of technology and automation we can bring to the table. Okay, so let's get to the fun part, the tech. What are the actual systems that could make this whole thing work? The stuff that could finally turn this sci-fi concept into a real, everyday experience. Let's start with the one chore literally everyone hates: laundry. Check this out. The automated laundry valet system would start with a smart hamper. When it gets full, it automatically calls a little collection pod to come pick it up. That pod zips it away to a central facility where industrial-scale robots wash, dry, and fold everything perfectly. Then a pod brings it all back, and a robotic arm inside your unit actually places the folded clothes right into your closet. Zero effort, it just happens. And believe me, it goes way beyond just laundry. We're talking about a home that basically anticipates your needs. A pneumatic tube system that silently whisks your trash and recycling away. A whole fleet of cleaning bots that are deployed the very second you walk out the door. Even the air you breathe is being scrubbed by an HVAC system that pulls dust right out of the air. It's this entire ecosystem of automation that works invisibly in the background.
So we have the industrial tech to handle laundry and vacuuming, but there's still a missing piece of the puzzle, right? How do you handle all the random unscripted stuff like tidying up a messy desk or picking up the shoes you left in the living room? Well, that's where general purpose humanoid robots come in. Something like Tesla's Optimus, that's the key. That's the final link that could take us from just having specialized automation to true hands off living.
This all sounds absolutely incredible. But it also sounds incredibly complex and, let's be honest, ridiculously expensive. So, how could we possibly get from where we are today to that? Well, the answer probably isn't for one company to do it alone. It's about building it together. Which brings us to the multi-billion-dollar question, doesn't it? If all these different pieces of technology are either already here or just around the corner, why isn't this a thing yet? What's the holdup? And the answer is pretty simple. The cost, the risk, and the sheer amount of expertise you need are just too massive for any one company, even a giant one, to take on. The only way this actually happens is through a strategic alliance. By teaming up, companies can split those enormous R&D bills, they can pool their unique skills in AI, hardware, and real estate, and this is crucial, they create a guaranteed market for the technology right from the start. So what would that dream team alliance even look like? Well, you could have a company like Tesla or 1X providing the humanoid robot. That's the body. You'd need Google's DeepMind to develop the generalist AI. That's the brain. A huge real estate firm like EQT brings the capital and the land. That's the place. An industrial specialist like Jensen Group builds all the heavy-duty automation. That's the engine. And then you have companies like Meta and Amazon jump in as the first customers, providing the users and guaranteeing revenue from day one. It's this powerful, interlocking puzzle of expertise that could finally make it all real.
All right, let's dive in. We're talking about a pretty radical new idea for housing today. I mean, forget just having a place to live. What if your home was actually designed to be a wealth accelerator, a system literally engineered to help you get to financial freedom faster?
I mean, let's be real. For so many of us, the dream of owning a home feels, well, more like a fantasy, right? You do everything you're supposed to. You save, you budget, but it feels like the goalposts just keep moving further and further away. It's this huge generational crisis of affordability, and it's leaving millions of people feeling totally stuck in this endless cycle of renting. And the problem is actually bigger than just the crazy high rent. According to this model, the issue really comes down to three core financial drains. Think of them as these hidden costs that are just systematically stopping young professionals from ever building up any real savings. Okay, so what if there was a solution? This whole concept, the automated co-living megastructure, it is not just another apartment building. It's being presented as a whole new kind of financial engine, something built from the ground up to solve this exact crisis. Just think about that phrase for a second, a high-efficiency pathway to capital. The entire point of this model isn't just to give you a roof over your head. No, it's to systematically create a surplus of cash right in your bank account, basically hitting the accelerator on your ability to save. So the big question is, how does it actually work? Well, the whole system is designed to go on the attack against what are called the 3 C's. These are the 3 biggest, most destructive drains on your income right after college. Let's break them down. Okay, so this model targets 3 really specific areas. You've got the cost of housing, the cost of chores, and the cost of consumption. A good way to think about it is like, these are the 3 major leaks in your financial bucket. And this system, it's trying to plug all 3 of them at the same time. All right, first up, the cost of housing. This is the one we all know and, well, love to hate, right? It's not just that huge rent check you write every month. It's the utility bills that seem to come out of nowhere, those massive security deposits, broker fees, and the thousands you have to sink into just furnishing the place. It's a lot. So how does this system actually fight back against those costs? Well, for starters, it clusters private rooms around these big shared common areas, and that right there dramatically lowers the housing costs for each person. Then there's a centralized smart grid that totally stabilizes your utility costs. Everything's bundled at the lowest possible rate, so you can say goodbye to those surprise heating bills. And here's the kicker. Because the units come fully furnished, all those huge upfront costs, we're talking the security deposits, broker fees, buying furniture, they just vanish. Gone. Okay. Let's move on to the second C,
And honestly, this is where the idea gets really, really powerful. It's the cost of chores. Now, we don't usually think of chores as a financial cost, do we? But they are. Every single hour you spend cleaning, or doing laundry, or taking out the trash, that's an hour you could have been earning money or learning a new skill. So, what's the solution? Get this, a fully automated downtime protocol. And yeah, I know it sounds a little like science fiction, but this is the absolute core of this system. Just imagine it, fleets of robotic cleaners quietly roaming the halls, a system that automatically handles all your trash and recycling, and a laundry valet that just does it all for you. Chores, as you know them, are pretty much eliminated from your life. And the impact of that? It's staggering. We're talking an estimated 8 to 12 hours freed up every single week. Seriously, just pause and think about that for a second. What would you do if you got an entire extra workday handed back to you every single week? And this brings us to the central argument here. Time is capital. The idea is that this saved time can be directly converted into money. So instead of burning your evenings and weekends on, let's face it, unpaid labor, you can now redirect all that time and mental energy. You could start a side hustle, get a new certification, or focus on climbing the ladder at work. Things that directly boost your income. Okay, the final C is the cost of consumption. And this is all about let's call it the inefficiency of living on your own. You know what I'm talking about? Every single person buying their own groceries, their own expensive blender they use twice a year, their own set of tools. When you add it all up, it's just incredibly wasteful. So this model tackles that head-on with some pretty radical sharing and efficiency. The whole community benefits from things like bulk food purchasing for the shared kitchens. It centralizes access to all that expensive equipment. So instead of 100 people each owning a blender they barely touch, there are just a few really high-quality ones available for everyone. It's really all about maximizing resources and just slashing waste. And we're not talking about abstract savings here. This is concrete cash. The estimates show that just by getting in on the shared meal programs, instead of buying all your own groceries, a resident could save anywhere from $150 to $300 every single month. So, let's recap. You've slashed your housing costs, you've basically eliminated chores, and you've cut way back on your consumption costs. So, what's the result? Well, this is where we see that whole financial engine idea really kick into high gear. And I mean, the difference is just dramatic. When you look at the potential savings in a traditional rental versus this automated co-living model, it's not just a little bit better. We're talking about a fundamental shift in your financial power. It completely changes what's even possible for you down the road. So the really crucial point is this. The system creates what's called a guaranteed savings differential. What does that mean? It means you have a predictable surplus of cash every month. Money that you can then aim like a laser beam at your biggest financial goal, that down payment on a home. And really, that's the ultimate payoff, isn't it? The whole combined effect of having lower expenses and having more time to increase your income, it allows a resident to, and this is a direct quote from the source material, drastically accelerate the timeline for achieving a down payment. And look, this isn't just about buying a house, eventually. It's about getting into that wealth-building cycle of homeownership years before your peers who are still stuck in that traditional rental trap. It lets your net worth start compounding so much sooner. When you step back and look at the whole thing, this model is really trying to present a brand new path forward. It's a serious attempt to completely recalibrate the financial equation for an entire generation that feels totally locked out of the housing market. So in the end, this whole concept is about so much more than just a new way to live. It's being pitched as a concrete, predictable path to get away from being dependent on renting and move towards real, genuine financial independence. And all of this leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to chew on. Look, it's a radical idea for sure, and it absolutely brings up its own set of challenges. Things like privacy and what community looks like. But as technology keeps advancing and this affordability crisis just gets worse, you have to wonder, could super efficient automated communities like this one actually redefine our financial future?